Guys, what's up? It's Dennis from Deniz World of Bodybuilding, and today I have the honor to interview Joe Pietaro from MuscleSportMag.com. I hope you know him. If you don't know him, I will introduce you him. I will do an interview today with him, and then I think you will have a good impression on him and his bodybuilding magazine. So, Joe, first I want to welcome you, obviously, and you worked with lots of bodybuilding magazines like Flex, MD, Muscle and Fitness, but you also worked with, general sport magazines like I think
Mhm.
Inside Pitch, New Jersey Daily Record newspaper, New York Sports Scene magazine. So didn't only do bodybuilding magazines like many of the reporters in this scene. So
Yeah.
which came first, bodybuilding or sports magazines?
First, I want to just thank you for having me on, Deniz. I think you're doing a great job.
Thank
You're a
you.
young guy in this field, and I think that what you're doing so far is really, and I've said this to you off camera too, on messages and stuff. I think you're doing a great job. You really got a good wide angle of everything that's going on, international scene and stuff like that, being in Europe. So I just wanted to say thanks first for that. But first, I broke in as a sports writer in 2005 doing regular mainstream sports. My first gig was actually doing basketball writing, professional basketball. And then I got a job at New York Sports Scene magazine, and I freelanced for a bunch of other different places, newspapers, and all print media at the time. This is going back then. The internet was not like it
Yeah.
is today. I mean, there were websites and stuff. I'll put it to you this way. MySpace was new when I was doing these sports things, and we just started to create a magazine page and stuff when I worked for the magazine then. So I always had a passion for sports since I'm a kid. Football, basketball, baseball, hockey, all of them, even soccer. I was actually covering the World Cup stateside, not in person, for a newspaper when Italy won the cup. And if I'm not mistaken, didn't they beat Germany that year?
Which year?
Probably about it was had to be like 2000.
6, 2006, I think
No,
Italy won.
yeah, it was. It might have been earlier than that. I'm trying to remember now. But yeah, probably it probably was '06. Italy, I think they may have beat
Yeah.
Germany, and I was covering the World Cup for a newspaper in Brooklyn, New York, my hometown.
Yeah, they beat
And I
France,
was
I think. Yeah.
France. Yes, now you're right. You're
Yeah.
right. Actually, you just jogged my memory. I remember the headline from the final story. So I've
Yeah.
kind of very well rounded as far as like regular mainstream team sports go, as far as even worldwide international soccer as well as stateside leagues. But that was a very different type of atmosphere as far, and I'm sure we're going to get into that as we move along in the questions. But sports definitely came way before the bodybuilding as far as writing goes.
I mean, sports which you covered first, like basketball, are team sports, but how did you came into bodybuilding? I mean, which was the idea going into that, or what was the turning point in your life to get into, getting into bodybuilding reporting?
I always was into bodybuilding as far as working out and following the IFBB scene since I started working out as 14. And I always was into it from there. And then as I got older, from a little bit of a from the outside looking in, I didn't follow it as closely, but I still was into it. I still tried to stay in shape and all of that good stuff, and go to the gym and stuff. But really, what happened was we went to the 2008 Arnold Classic from the sports magazine, myself as the editor in chief, and the this guy Keith, who was the head of sales, and we basically went there to try to just get potential sales. You try to get leads. So we went to this place. We figured we would try to say, all right, we're a sports magazine, even though this is bodybuilding and fitness. There's still a lot of sports angles. There's on the fringe aisles of the Arnold, you have a lot of mixed martial arts and boxing booths. It's weird how they kind of have them in the last aisle most of the time. So there is regular sports there, plus like UFC and things like that over the years have been there. WWE has been there. So it's not just the BPIs and the BSNs of the world. So we went there with the hope of gaining advertisers for our sports magazine. And I was all for it since I was already into this stuff. And I guess being there and seeing the people and taking pictures and doing interviews and stuff, I got bit by the bug again, if you will. And
Okay.
then I started to slowly implement bodybuilding into the sports magazine, just like a small column. Like I did an interview with Lee Haney, and I did that as a small column in the magazine, just trying to like bridge the gap, if you will. And unfortunately, it was around 2009, a late two, well, it was probably like mid 2008, that the magazine. This is when the paper industry basically took a huge hit, and the economy just went into the tank over here in the U.S. And he basically needed to shut the doors, the magazine. We were trying to keep it alive a little bit by doing thinner issues, but it was basically he laid off the majority of the staff there. So I saw the handwriting on the wall. I said, this isn't for long. And I
Yeah.
said, maybe I'll start my own thing that mixes bodybuilding and sports. And that's where I came up with MuscleSportMag. And I bought the URL, it was available, and had somebody create the website. And it started out as just a regular blog, if you will, as a website back in, I believe it was like May of 2008, a couple of months after I was at that Arnold.
Yeah. So, which did you like better? Sports magazines and
Uh,
reporting for
sports,
or bodybuilding?
sports, it's not even close. I mean, it's the nonsense that goes on in the bodybuilding
Yeah.
industry between everything in it, going from the social media sites all the way up. I mean, I was attending Super Bowls in locker rooms, interviewing Peyton Manning and things like that. I mean, these were things that, as a kid, I would never in a million years dream of being able to do, and I was doing that. You cannot compare interviewing Peyton Manning in the Super Bowl winning locker room to getting told you can't interview Phil Heath because he signed with Flex magazine. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just it was definitely a strange transition to go from all sports to bodybuilding and seeing how the things differed in the world, media and otherwise of it.
Exactly. Okay, I get it. So, people probably know you from the Greg and Joe show you did back then
Hmm.
on your
Sure. Yeah.
magazine. So, I have to ask you that question because I hear it a lot of times. Will there ever be a reunion with Greg Valentino, or is there no chance of that? No.
You know, anyone that says never in this world is foolish because you can. I'm a firm believer. Never say never. I mean, Greg and I had our differences. We talked it out over the phone. We kind of buried that proverbial hatchet, if you will, and we've said that yeah, we would try to do something again. He's got a lot of things going on, as do I. I don't know if being back at MD would be good for his job there if he did deal with me because of my differences and public stance as far as MD goes. But I would have no problem doing it. I just don't know when or what format that would ever be.
Okay, thank you. So another good question or different question. You saw a lot of things in the bodybuilding industry probably. So what was the most awkward or most funny moment in your bodybuilding career or bodybuilding reporting career?
Um,
If you have any.
that's a good question. It's kind of giving me drawing me a blank now, which is weird. I mean, I guess just I don't know. I mean, sometimes even watching your own show replay, sometimes you feel awkward. I mean, you're like, oh, like like I'll watch. I guess watching some of my old stuff when I first started doing this, I cringe saying, who the fuck paid money to advertise on that? And I'd like to think that I've evolved and I've improved over the years. But I guess, probably a cheap answer, not probably what you were looking for, would be seeing some of the stuff that I did when I first started doing things like this, the old radio shows and the original videos.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, good, honest answer. Yeah.
I
So,
didn't throw anybody under the bus. Look how that's very odd for me. Usually I do.
okay. So, off the camera, we talked about this a couple of times with the publishing and everything. So, do you think most of the magazines are going down, nowadays? They're not how they used to be,
Mhm.
talking about success and everything. Do you think that's because of the internet in general, or do you think because they started to decline in their quality more and more? or do you think it's a combination or something?
You stole the words out of my mouth. Definitely a combination. I think more the former than the latter, because obviously the internet has taken away all print media for the most part. I mean, newspapers, I think also a lot of things have become one-sided, where you're not getting the news anymore. You're getting an opinionated reaction from the news, which I think turns people off. So I think print media, for the most part, going across the board, not just bodybuilding, I'm talking in general, has done that. And that has turned a lot of people off, where if they're going to do that, they'd rather just look at a website that tells them the side that they would like to hear. And you could look at all of these things online. I think the bodybuilding magazines as a whole have taken a hit because of the internet. I mean, when I was a kid, you had to wait till like sometimes a couple of months after the Mr. Olympia, and Muscle and Fitness was the magazine back then, the main like bodybuilding magazine. Flex was out, but it was fairly new at the time. You had Iron Man, you had Dan Lurie's Muscle Training Illustrated. MD was not, it was very different back then. It wasn't a hardcore magazine at all. And so really Muscle and Fitness was kind of like the main magazine for the guy and girl that was into the IFBB bodybuilding scene. So you'd wait sometimes 2 months or better to see the results of the Olympia, because it may have happened in Finland. This is when it used to go all around the world. It may be in Helsinki. It may have been in Italy. It may have been at the Garden in New York City. Unless you were there or you know somebody that was there, you had to wait for the magazine to come out. So obviously with instant results, live time basically, even on Twitter, if you don't have a view of it, you're still reading it. And the play-by-plays, which I cannot stand. I think it's completely fucking useless on these internet forums for bodybuilding shows. Those things have killed the magazine industry, where the magazine was the main thing people were looking for. There's only so many times you can rewrite the same story. How to get, add 5 inches on your arms, how to lose 3 inches off your waist, what's the best foods for muscle building, what's the best foods for fat burning. If you don't know that by now, then, obviously, you're not taking this thing seriously. So it's a huge combination of things. I think the quality of the content in those magazines like Flex and MD have gone down drastically. And it's not even from, listen, when I worked there, it's not because I was there. There was other people that were working there at the time that are not there anymore. Robbie Durand being one of them at both magazines, running the show. I think a lot of things have suffered, and people don't want to spend the money. I mean, Flex charges like $15,000 for a single page ad in one issue. I mean, how many companies are willing to do that? I mean, not many. So they outprice themselves because the product is not worth it anymore. And you can put magazines in digital form, which I don't know if you have a follow-up question for that as far as how I do my publication business, but I'll get into that if you want. Also, how I have a different business plan than the Flexes and MDs of the world. So definitely the internet has hurt the publishing industry. And I think that a lot of the personnel that were good writing in those print magazines are not there anymore. So that is a perfect storm for it to just really bottom out.
Yeah, exactly. So knowing that with the internet and the publishing going downwards and everything, and at the same time having a magazine, what's your type of distribution of your content? How do you do it?
Well, I looked at it this way. I started the site in 2008. In 2009, I started it as a digital magazine. And then by 2012, the company grew enough where I was able to do a short print run. What I'm trying to do, now I'm an old school guy. I like print magazines, and I still think there's a fair amount of people out there that like to see their name and or face in a print magazine as opposed to a web page. So what I try to do is I utilize the print magazine basically to drive people towards my digital platforms. And one of them being the magazine in digital form, which is free to read. When you got MD and Flex, they charge you something, I don't know if it's $5 an issue sometimes to read, or like $25 a year or something. Mine's $0 to read, issue 1 or issue, the whole year. And they're all archived on my site, and you can click on it you don't have to sign up, you don't have to sign in. Anyone can click on it. I make it easier. And I do that because when I have a prospective advertiser and they say, oh, how many do you print? I said, don't even talk about the print. I print 5,000 copies an issue, but that's not even beside the point. The main thing is the digital version I focus on promoting, because that one, anyone, you can click on it now in Germany. I can click on it right now in New York. A guy can click on it in Australia. And there's no shipping charges. There's no nothing. Yes, I do have subscribers to the magazine. No, I don't put it on the newsstand, because being from the print industry, sports magazine, and since then, I've seen that that is not a viable outlet, because you only get pennies on a dollar per sale. You have to pay somebody to go there and distribute them and circulation and all of that. So at the end of the day, it's not worth doing that. Direct sales off of my website for the few people that do enjoy the paper magazine. I also send it out to people that are in it, the advertisers and or columnists or people who are featured in the magazine, just as, you know, something that they can, as a keepsake. And I really, my platform is digital. And you can see, I mean, if you just follow me on Instagram, most of it's videos now, the YouTube channel. So when people ask me about the print magazine, I go, that's just one small arm of this whole business. And it's possibly the smallest one, because I concentrate so much on the digital platforms of that. But once you do the layout for the digital, you have those pages. So to me, I'm like, why not print it? As long as I can afford to do a short print run, I'm going to continue to do so, even though I know that's not going to get me rich. I'm going to do it more or less just to be different than the RX Muscles of the world and things like that. And because I know my magazine's better than MDs and Flexes. There's not even a comparison.
Okay. Okay, so you have some experience in the whole bodybuilding magazine industry. Be honest, do you regret that you built your own magazine, or are you, are you proud that you did that?
I don't regret it. Of course, I'm proud of it. I mean, anyone that has their own business, you have to be proud of it as long as it's successful. Now, this is something I tell advertisers. I'm never going to get rich off of you, and you're never going to go broke because of me and what I take from you and your ROI. To me, this is something that I enjoy doing. I like working for myself, and comparing it to working for Steve Bleckman, I kiss the ground every day that I can work for myself. I don't regret it at all. I do wish that I was able to do sports more and concentrate on that. But the advertising is not there for the general sports, the team sports market. It's more for the fitness market. So I put sports involved in a little bit in the magazine, and I do the sports show online on the video. But I have to concentrate on bodybuilding and fitness, because that's where the dollar signs are. So I don't regret it, but I just wish that I could do more of the sports with what I have going on now.
Okay. Do you think that print magazines will be gone completely in the bodybuilding scene, in the future? Or do you think they will be out, always for a small amount, let's say?
I think eventually they're all going to go by the way of the dodo bird. Yeah, I think they're going to be extinct. And I don't think it's going to be very far in the future either. I think some people might print like one issue a year as a special edition kind of thing, a holiday issue or something. And but I think the signs are there. I mean, if you flip through MD and Flex on the newsstand, Flex seems to be treading water with their page count. MD, it goes down, not every issue, maybe a handful of pages. Within 5, that's I'm not even gauging that. The scale has to go further than that for you to gauge if a magazine's thinning out or not. But you can see MD has gone down even since I was let go there in 2014, a lot of pages.
Yeah, okay, thank you for that. So do you think that all those bodybuilding magazines slept on the whole digitalization issue because of their, decline in success? Because you're doing the whole digitalization, you're putting out free to read, every issue you can read, it's free, you don't have to sign in or anything. And I don't know anybody else who does it that way. Do you think that's the wrong thing, those magazines do, and because of that they are declining every year? Or do you think it's just other issues?
Well, I think that definitely has something to do with it, because obviously people don't like to part with their money. And to me, it's like somebody goes, well, how are you making money if you're not charging for the magazine? I say, well, that makes the hits go up. Hence, the advertisers like to see those numbers for obvious reasons. And that's how I make the money. I mean, you go on a website, you go on foxnews.com or whatever, CNN.com. You're not paying to read those articles on those sites. NewYorkPost.com. Every day I'm on there reading the sports and the regular political news and the world news. So how are they making money then? Now, I know they sell a newspaper to post, but just using it as an example, they're selling ad space on their website. And obviously they have different type of things where their Google ads are much more profitable than a smaller site would be. So I use that as a business model. I go, okay, more people are going to click on it. I can turn that into dollar signs as long as I have confidence in my and my staff's ability to sell those ads. To charge for a digital magazine to read once, I mean, I don't know. To me, I don't think you're going to get a lot of people doing that. If they do, God bless them. Then maybe more people are out there willing to spend money than I'm giving credit for.
Yeah, when I watch bodybuilding videos and everything, people always talk about the camaraderie in bodybuilding, like how it was in the 70s, how it is now, so that it completely went down. So you're not a bodybuilding competitor, but you're a bodybuilding businessman.
No.
So
Yeah.
is there any camaraderie in the business of bodybuilding, or is it completely rivalry or something like
Very cutthroat. You can be friends with people that are your competitors, but at the end of the day, it's business, and you got to pay the bills. Now, I have a daughter in college and a son, who's a year and a half away from college. I live in New York. I live on Long Island. I pay $12,000 a year in real estate taxes. I mean, it's the money is ridiculous. The expenses and I don't have a huge house by any means. Trust me, it's a very modest home, and so it's when it comes down to business, you can be friends with people, but when it comes down to it's a business move, not a personal move. Some people take that the wrong way, and the whole thing with me firing Gregg, it was a business thing. Yeah, it got personal when we got in each other's face, but it started. I mean, the whole thing grew from a business situation, and people have to realize that it's you can't be the nicest guy in business. I have to be cold sometimes, and if people think I'm a prick for doing that, then that's fine. I don't mind that. Dave Palumbo is a perfect example. Dave and I are friends, but I know if it came down to business, he's not going to give me an inch because he's going to try to get that ad before I do. And likewise, I will do the same. As far as if I see there's an opportunity to get something, I'm going to point out my prices are better than his. He's going to point out his hits are better than mine, and as he should. So it is very cutthroat. There's a lot of shit going on right now that's even getting beyond that. It's even getting into the childish scheme of things. I don't know if you saw my live feed on Monday, but
didn't have time. I had an Excel course. Yeah.
Okay, but there was a fake account made by somebody pretending to be Comerica Muscle, and and plugging Gregg's show for that night, and I have a motto: I don't block, I don't delete, I don't do that to anybody. If you want to come on my show and say I'm a dick, I'm not going to block you. So that's kind of the way I do things. So I wasn't going to block this guy. And then even if I did, he's going to open another account under a different name and start it over. So it is very cutthroat. There is some camaraderie. Like I'm buddies with Kevin Gregg from evolutionofbodybuilding.net. He lives in Malta over there in Europe. And he and he's going to do some stuff for MuscleSportMag. So, and since he bought that site a few years ago, he and I have been friendly, and we've always cross-promoted one another. And so that's an example where I'm not looking to fuck him. He's not looking to fuck me. We're going to try to look to help one another out. But if it comes down to me versus MD, no, I'm pulling no punches. I'm going to throw them under the bus every time to prove that my product is supreme to theirs.
Okay. So I think the whole thing is just people are very misinformed about the money in the whole bodybuilding business, because they think if you're doing a couple of videos or anything, couple of articles, that you're making a lot of money. So, but that's not the case, because
no, not at all.
so coming to that, it's an obvious question, but just asking it, is it easy to make a living in the bodybuilding scene?
No way. No, absolutely not. Gregg has said it on his shows. get a career, get a real job, get a pension, get something with medical benefits, and do this as a hobby. You
Yeah,
know, I have the luxury of having a pension from a previous career, that I'm able to do this as my full-time job now because I have that income. If I didn't, this would have to be my part-time job.
exactly. Yeah, people should know that. People are so misinformed, but that's the reality. You have to see the
Yes.
reality. Yeah. Um, what I also wanted to talk about is we already a couple years ago we already had Generation Iron, and
Hmm.
people, before the film came out, people said this will be the break into the mainstream, for bodybuilding, and they are saying this for decades now that okay, this move will be the break into the mainstream. This move will be the break into the mainstream. They tried it with wrestling back then, but all of those events failed, in the
Yeah.
situation to break bodybuilding into mainstream. It's still not in the mainstream. And now we have a different event coming up. It's the movie Bigger, which I
Yes.
already asked you.
Hmm.
Do you think that this movie Bigger will be the break into the mainstream, or what's your view on that?
I don't think it's going to be the break. I hope I'm wrong. First of all, I'm looking forward to the movie. I know Dan Solomon very well, who's heavily involved in it. We worked together at MD. I know him from before that. Another guy that I know, actor Max Martini, is in the movie. I'm actually doing an interview with him coming up soon. That'll be on Muscle Sport TV on YouTube. He's in the Weeder movie. He was in Saving Private Ryan, Captain Phillips. He's been in tons of movies, Max. The 50 Shades of Grey, the first two out of the trilogy, and he's going to be in the third as well. So he's involved with the movie. So I'm looking to get a good inside scoop on the movie of what's going on in the shooting when I interview Max. I think it's going to do okay with guys like you and I. I don't know how many people are going to plunk down $12, $15 to go to the movies with their date to see a movie about two brothers from Montreal that started a bodybuilding magazine and a mimeograph machine in mom's kitchen. Honestly, I don't think it's going to go over very well. It looks like it has a decent cast, so it looks like they're putting good production into it, which is great. And I remember when I was working at MD, this is when they first started to talk about that movie, and Dan wrote a feature on it in the magazine. And I was, read it when we got the magazine in the office, and I was like, oh, this is cool. I think this is a great thing. And it's, from what I could tell, it's based on the book Brothers in Iron, if I'm not mistaken, is the name of it. Joe and
Yeah,
Ben Weeder book,
yeah,
which is a really good, if you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. It's a
yeah.
really interesting book. And I think the people like us that are into the sport are going to go watch it. I don't know how many people that have no idea who Joe and Ben Weeder are going to go watch that movie.
Okay. So speaking of that, I think the same way. I think it will be great for bodybuilding, but I'm pretty sure that it won't be the break into the mainstream. But
Mm-hmm.
speaking of that break, do you think that anything ever could make, bodybuilding a mainstream issue, or do you think that bodybuilding is just so a niche sport that
Mm-hmm.
it never could, get into the mainstream or will get into the mainstream?
You know what? It's kind of hard. I hate, like I said before, never say never, but in this case, I'm going to say almost never, because it did reach the mainstream. Now, there was the fitness revolution in the 1980s where the muscles were the big thing, and the women with like Corey Everson, those type of women, they were getting mainstream exposure. Mark Gastineau from the Jets on the Jack LaLanne commercial, he was a big muscular football player. So they were really trying to, the original American Gladiators, late 80s, early 90s. That's like that fitness revolution, they actually called it. And that's when it peaked as far as getting bodybuilding out there. And also when the WWF wrestlers were starting to get, a
Yeah.
lot of times you see like old Bruno Sammartino, these, these guys like burly and like a lumberjack, fat, big gut, hairy back. Then all of a sudden, when that WWF at the time started to get more like physique guys that were cut and big and stuff like that. And so muscles were in. And I don't know why it just never continued. My theory is once Dorian Yates and Linda Murray became the champions of the respective Mr. and Miss Olympia, it got too big for the average person out there that was watching TV. And because it used to be on TV, it was on Channel 2, it was on ESPN. But then you look, say, wait, a lot of these wrestlers are 300, like Brock Lesnar. These guys are huge, well, obviously on steroids. And why are they accepted by the mainstream? And why not bodybuilding? I think it's a combo of two things. They were too big, and everybody knows they're on steroids. Everybody knows the football players are on juice. Everybody knows the wrestlers are juiced up. The UFC guys, a lot of them are. I don't know if that's the complete outlaw thing here, but I think a lot of it is oiled up, shaved, posing with little sparkly pink or purple thongs on. Well, not thongs, but you know what I'm saying. I think that has a lot to do with people don't want to say, wow, I watched that. That's cool. Because they're, you know, they get, not homophobia, but I think the combination of all of that with that changes it from wrestling UFC to what's the difference? Bodybuilding, it's not really, they're not grappling. They're standing there posing oiled up. And it's a little weird. If people like, I used to be in the press box at Giant Stadium and I'd be updating my site and the guy next to me go, what the fuck are you looking at? And I'm like, oh, that's the article I updated, you know, I had to put up. And they're like, you cover that shit too? Like, they don't even know what the fuck it is. So it was, the mainstream world is very like, you know, they definitely raise their eyebrows at the whole bodybuilding world. So I don't know if it'll ever get there. Everybody says, oh, if they, you know, they get the GH guts out, that'll fix it. I don't think it has anything to do with it. I think it's just the stigma that's attached to it from multiple arms. One of them being steroids, the other one being possible, you know, looks a little homophobic a little bit, people are being, I think. Now, listen, I could care less if somebody's gay and they watch bodybuilding for a sport purpose, not for a turn-on purpose. You know, I mean, maybe that's not their type. I don't know. You know? But to answer the question, I think it's going to be almost impossible for it to ever break back, even to close to what it was in that fitness generation, revolution days.
Yeah, I think, you know, it's sad to say that, but I'm completely with you. I think the same way. And one of the last questions, maybe. I live in Europe, like you know, in Germany, and people here tend to think that bodybuilding is very, very popular in the United States. And that bodybuilders are very known and that they are making good deals there. And a lot of people, they want to come to the United States for that reason. What's the reality? Is bodybuilding really that accepted and known? Or is it a niche, you know? You know, all magazines come from America, Mr. Olympia is in America, so people tend to think that there it's a big thing, but I don't think it's that way. How is it really?
You are correct. Right? It almost sounds like the old thing when, you know, you're learning your at least history taught in the U.S. The old thing, the immigrants in the early 1900s used to hear the streets are paved with gold in the U.S. Like these poor immigrants, like my grandparents over in Italy, you know, Ireland, all over, Germany, everywhere, that they heard that the United States, you can go there and you can make money and live in a big, beautiful house and have a great life and have a nice car when cars came around later on. So I guess it kind of goes along those lines where people are hearing these things and thinking the opportunities are just they're throwing themselves at you. I mean, obviously it's different today because you can go on Google Earth and see that the streets aren't paved in gold over here, right? Yeah. But a little different in 1910, I guess. But it is, I mean, I guess there's more opportunities here, which I'm not sure even if there are, because the IFBB Elite Pro now, and then whatever the amateur division that Raphael is going to be, I'm not sure what the actual title of it is yet. Okay. I think there's going to be tons of contests all over Europe, even more so now because of the split. And yes, there is a lot of NPC and other organization shows, tons of natural organizations that people aren't even aware of, unfortunately. So there may be more opportunities per se here, but these guys aren't well known. I mean, if I walked down the block with Phil Heath, people would think he was probably a football player or a wrestler or something. They would never think, oh, this guy's Mr. Olympia, and know who he is. You know, the average person in the street, they would have no clue who he is.
Okay. And guys like Rich Piana, you know, the social media guys, were they already known in the normal street, or?
More people are going to know Rich Piana's name than they're going to know Phil Heath. If you go up to a group of kids that are, I don't know, not in the gym, but, elsewhere. Gym, it's a different story. 18-year-old kids, and you ask them, I'm sure 4 out of 5 are going to say they know Pietaro. Maybe 1 or 2 will say they know who Phil Heath is. My son's a perfect example. He's 16 years of age, right? He plays high school football. He plays basketball. He knows every player in the NBA, coach in the NBA. He's like an encyclopedia of the NBA. If I name one bodybuilder, he'll have no clue of who I'm talking about. So it just depends on what they're into. If they're into bodybuilding when they grew up and they go to the gym and they like Arnold movies and stuff and they still are into that, it'll be easier for them to know who these guys are. But the average person does no clue of who these bodybuilders are, pro or amateur. But the YouTube guys more so because they're putting themselves out there more. They're smarter. Yeah. They're marketing themselves better.
Yeah. So, thank you for answering all the questions. Maybe one last question.
No, keep whatever you want, man. I'll answer them. Keep shooting.
Okay. The Rock announced, last year that he will bring the Mr. Olympia into television again, but I don't think it happened. I'm pretty sure it didn't happen. Only one YouTube video came out, 15 minutes, and it didn't cover the contest too. So do you have any idea, or what's your idea? Why do you think it didn't happen, or do you think that bodybuilding will be in TV ever again, like the Mr. Olympia?
It'll never be on TV at that stage. You might get little snippets of it here and there. The whole thing with The Rock, I got to give him credit. I'm sure he tried. I think his $7, I think, is the name of him and his ex-wife, Dani Garcia. They're business partners. And they made the announcement it was going to be CBS and it was going to be, televised. They ended up just doing, it was actually a couple of videos. It wasn't just that one. Originally it was just that one they released, and they released a couple more after that. But they were all just like short 15-minute clips. Well, beautifully produced. They did a great job. It really was a great director and everything, and the quality of it was super, right? So I'm sure that when he made that announcement, that was his intention. I don't think he was lying to the crowd. I think similar to in, was it 2014 with the NBC Sports Network was supposed to do it, and they shelved it. They had the things on the schedule. There was 2 90-minute specials that were going to air. I think it was like October 11th and October 18th, like a month after the show. And then all of a sudden they were removed. And I even reached out to NBC Sports Network and their sports PR people asking, why was it removed? Is there an explanation why it was shelved? And they never replied. So, I won't even speculate because that's what those other guys do over there, and I don't like to speculate. Christian Duque, so why that CBS turned it down and NBC Sports Network turned it down, we can just take a guess. I think it wasn't any interest in it. As far as they were trying to sell it to their boardroom, and their boardroom was like, get this shit off. Probably. So, that's fine. It doesn't have to be on Channel 2, CBS or whatever. If it could be an internet broadcast, it could be like $7 production could do it and promote it. Maybe at the end of Ballers, which is on HBO, that would be cool if they ever said, come to $7, productions.com to watch the highlights from the Mr. Olympia show. I think that's the most you're ever going to get. If there is an in, it's going to be through a guy like Rock promoting it through another one of his avenues. But you're not going to see this on TV, as far as I could tell, unless some bodybuilder like hits Lotto and buys his own channel or something. Other than that, it's not happening. If Generation Iron can't get on TV and they do their stuff top notch, it's not getting on TV.
Yeah, that's the reality of the bodybuilding business, I think. Yeah.
And that's fine too, though. I got no problem with being a niche. If it gets more mainstream exposure, it's probably gonna get more mainstream, negative comments thrown at it. So, just keep it where it is. We can enjoy it for ourselves.
Exactly. So, you answered all my question. Do you have anything left to talk about, or? Other than that, you answered everything. So
okay. Basically, just I appreciate you having me on. I think what you're doing is cool. You're starting your own channel. You had Gregg on a few times.
Yeah.
Just to, I don't know what your career aspirations are, but Remember, I told you who to not emulate in this industry, and I was one of them. It's like, I'm not going to say, oh, do it. I told you who to not emulate, and I was one of them because, I'm loudmouth and I'm, step on my dick sometimes when I talk too much. But if you're going to do this as like a hobby thing, that's great. But you should definitely, I think you got some chops. Maybe you can work this into something else where you can do other things besides just bodybuilding, because I think you have a lot of gumption and talent, and I think you're ready to blossom into other things and keep this going as a side gig, man.
Exactly. That's what I'm thinking. So guys, so thank you, Joe, for making an interview with me. All the
pleasure was all mine, bro. Anytime.
Every listener, viewer, watcher, check his magazine out. It's MuscleSportMag.com, I think. I will put the link into the description. And
Thank you.
Joe, answered in the interview, every issue you can completely read it free, the digital version. So don't have to pay $1, not even a penny. You can read it. And I think it's interesting. It has guys like Lee Priest, Buster Roy, Jerry Ward. And I think why not, it's good to read on a tablet maybe or on a phone. So check that out, and I hope to make another show with you in the future. So maybe we'll.
And also, just one more shameless plug, if I may. Subscribe to Muscle Sport TV on YouTube. We got daily quality videos coming out. Obviously free. It's on YouTube, and all different things. Crystal Wildfire Anthony, I have a female bodybuilder. She's going to be doing a lot of big things with us. We have MSTV. We have Sports Shot. I have a whole different bunch of hosts. Nick Miller from Nick's Strength and Power has joined our team. He's going to be doing things on video as well. Johnny Bravo, who does great production, he'll be doing stuff with us. So it's not just my ugly face out there. There's a lot of different hosts. It's a whole variety of hosts. And maybe one day even we can collaborate and get you up on there. I wouldn't mind doing that, bro.
Yeah, that would be great. So let's see what the future will bring. And thank you again. So
thank you.
Guys, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Give it a like, write your opinion into the comments if you have any questions left. And of course, subscribe to Joe's channel. I will put the emblem into the video, and
thank you.
Just have the opportunity to subscribe to your channel. So thank you guys. See you soon. Bye.